All right, after I just released my favorite Batman films video, I'm going to keep with the trend and I'm now actually going to do my top 10 comic book movie list. I am going to do my top 10 movies of all time eventually. That is just a list that is very hard to compile and it will take me a long time. Even this top 10 comic book film list was really hard for me. Honestly, this list could change for me 6 months from now, a year from now, I don't know. Even when I do look at it, I do feel like, oh, this could go here and this could go there. But overall, I am happy with the list I made and how it looks. Once again, personal opinion, this is something that everyone would have a different looking list of favorite comic book movies. I mean, it's very subjective. It's very personal to you, what you like in your movies, what you don't like, the characters you like as well, because there's hundreds of superheroes. Nowadays, there are so many comic book movies as well that aren't even just superheroes either. There are comic book movies based off of characters that don't fall within the banners of DC and Marvel. Now, I do have a couple of honorable mentions, but we'll get to those when I'm done my list. So my top 10 comic book movies of all time. At number 10, I'm putting Zack Snyder's Justice League. Yes, Zack Snyder's Justice League is a very important film to me and I think the comic book community as well. And it's not even just so much about the film that makes it powerful, it's the movement behind it that made it powerful. I mean, the Snyder fans are very strong and very outspoken in the sense that we know what we want. And we all know that DC was stripped of a lot of possibilities, and getting this movie was a step in the right direction of hopefully changing the course of DC. And the fact that Zack Snyder made a 4-hour film that was capable of captivating you and keeping you entertained throughout the entire runtime is very important. I mean, this is one of the only DC team-up movies we've had in the sense of Justice League. We've never had a live-action version of this, and when we see nowadays, the market is dominated by those types of movies, but on the Marvel side, we've never had the opportunity to see it on DC's side. And no, I'm not counting Joss Whedon's version because that's not even a movie. But for the Snyder Cut, he did justice to pretty much every single one of these characters and he handled them brilliantly. In my opinion, this is simply a movie and a movement that will never be forgotten in the comic book world, and that's why it deserves a spot in my top 10 at number 10. At number 9, I am putting Avengers Infinity War. One of the main reasons that this is actually 9 and Zack Snyder's Justice League is not ahead of it, this is almost 10 years in the making. Actually, this was 10 years in the making of all of these superheroes being brought into one world and being brought into one grand movie going against one common threat. And I really like the way how they divvied up the film, how there was kind of 3 separate stories. There was the Earth story, there was the Titan story, and then there was the space story. And I like how it wasn't just the base Avengers sticking together fighting off Thanos. You know, you had Captain America leading a small team on Earth. You had Iron Man and Strange leading a team on a different planet. You had Thor and Rocket Raccoon with Groot in space trying to create a new weapon for Thor himself. And I think respect simply does need to go to them for being able to execute a film on that scale the way they did after for 10 years seeing all these characters be developed. We all knew the day was going to come, but they did it well when it came. I will just say really quickly, the one absolutely ruthless thing they did in that film, and not in a good way, terrible. It was really bad, and they carried it on even into Endgame, was the Hulk. The representation and the execution of the Hulk was awful, and I don't know where their decision making came in with that and why they did that, but overall, ignoring that fact, it's a great film. At number 8, I am putting The Dark Knight Rises. Now, the bias in me wants to put this film somewhere near the top. Maybe in a sense you can already say this list is biased in the sense that it is all based off of my opinion, but trying to make a fair list of great comic book films, I do have to realize there are actually a ton of great comic book films, and The Dark Knight Rises, I know deep down in myself, if I put this movie any higher, I would be lying to some of the other great movies out there. So to be fair, The Dark Knight Rises is on my top 10. It is one of the greats, but I am going to put it at the 8th spot. Now, I did say this in my Batman rankings video. The Dark Knight Rises is just a fantastic conclusion to the Dark Knight trilogy. It really does execute what it means to be Batman, what it means to be Bruce Wayne, but overall what it simply means to be a hero for fighting something in which you believe. We saw this Bruce Wayne battle so many things throughout this entire trilogy, and this was a fantastic way to give him one last test of the body, and then for him to move on and live a happy life the way Alfred pictured he would in the future. At number 7, I put Batman vs. Superman. I know for a lot of people, this movie would not be on their top 10 list. And I also know this movie makes people mad when other people like this film. Seriously can't understand why. I don't know why it hurts people's feelings so much that other people actually find enjoyment or even love out of this film. Beats me, doesn't make sense. But it doesn't matter. It's on my top 10 comic book films of all time. I do believe this movie's a little ahead of its time, and maybe it's because we are so used to the usual action adventure beat 'em up superheroes that we're not used to seeing a superhero film like this that actually tests more intellectually. And I'm hearing it again, people gonna sit here and say, you don't need to be smart to understand a superhero movie, or the movie's not even intellectual in any way, it's just stupid. My point is that the movie tests you in actually discovering what it would mean to have a man like Superman live on Earth with some of the worst repercussions you can imagine. Yes, Superman is a hero. He is going to be there to save people or help people. But what happens when he fights somebody just as powerful as him? The world is not going to be a safe place. How do you maintain a safe world with a man like him? And then for Batman, a man who has lost his sense of hope and justice has now led him into being a killer. How do you take Batman and revert him back to his original state? To revert him back to the Batman we all know, which is exactly what he does by the end of the film when Superman dies. Yeah, look, there are things I don't agree with in the movie. I don't agree with how they represented Doomsday. I think for visually and a cinematic effect, it works. You know, his whole charge up power, him growing. I think he even flew and shot lasers out of his eyes and mouth. Yes, cinematically, epically, it works. But representing him off of a comic book page, no, not a big fan of that. Should Superman have died at the end of Batman vs. Superman? No, don't fully agree with that. I understand why they did it. Don't think they should have happened there. But look, not my movie, not my vision. Do I like Killer Batman compared to Justice Batman? No, I don't hate the idea. Of course, Justice Batman is my Batman. I wouldn't make a Batman who is a killer, but I absolutely understand the route he was taking with him, and I understand why he was killing people. I know at the end of the day, this is more than likely a movie that people will never be on the same page as one another. But for me, it falls in the top 10, and I simply love and respect the ideals, especially the specifics of God versus man. At number 6, I put Batman Begins. This movie is one of the best comic book origin films. And to be quite honest with you, I believe Batman Begins was not just a rejuvenalization of the Batman character, but I think it was a rejuvenalization of all superhero movies. Yes, you did have Spider-Man at the time. You also had X-Men, but I do believe Spider-Man and maybe even a bit of X-Men were just movies that people thought if you're gonna make a superhero film, it needs to be them. With Batman Begins, not only did it open people's eyes to the fact that, oh damn, you can have superhero movies, but it also opened people's eyes to the fact that, like, damn, you can have superhero movies, but you can have them dark, gritty, and grounded. And I know using those words are so typical and almost a little cringy sometimes when you hear them, but that's exactly what it is. It's true. That's what Batman did for the world of cinema. And I also think it was a fantastic movie pinpointing the origin of Bruce Wayne. We finally got to see a full, detailed take on everything Bruce Wayne had to go through as a kid, as a young man, returning to Gotham after training for years to become the world's deadliest assassin. All of that stuff that he had to go through in a Bruce Wayne origin story was rediscovered in live action for this movie, and we really felt the pain of Bruce Wayne Wayne and why he truly needs to become a man dressed in a bat suit fighting off crime. Now, entering into the top 5, at number 5, I have Spider-Man 2, Tobey Maguire. This Spider-Man film is probably the best Spider-Man film ever made. The first movie I ever remember seeing in theaters, because I was young, was Spider-Man 1. Spider-Man was my guy when I was growing up. Obviously, I got older, I turned over to Batman. I think Batman is the greatest science fiction fantasy creation of all time. But of course, when you're a kid, you do vibe more with those kind of hopeful, cheerful, jokey type of characters like a Spider-Man. And Spider-Man 1 was a really good beginning to a Spider-Man trilogy, of which was then followed by Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 had so much going for it. Action, storyline, music score, romance, drama, thriller. I do feel like that movie is also timeless. I feel like you could watch that film 10 years ago and love it. You could watch it today and love it. You can watch it 50 years from now and love it as well. So many classic scenes when he's webbing and all of a sudden he loses the ability to web because he's stressed. Or how about the famous train scene when he slows down the train? Just so much good about that film. And I think there's a reason why Tobey still remains a lot of people's favorite Spider-Man. Now, moving into number 4, and this one was really hard for me because I didn't know if I wanted to put this at 3 or 4. But number 4 is Man of Steel. I think it is the best Superman movie made. And what I think is so fantastic about the movie is whereas Batman vs. Superman is a world that is dealing with the fact that a Superman exists, Man of Steel deals with the fact that should the world know that a Superman exists? And the only reason Clark outed his identity is because of Zod. If Zod never found Earth, there's a chance that Clark Kent is never Superman and just remains to be a regular man. I mean, in the face of planet Earth, that is. The whole thing about Superman is that, yes, he's an alien. Yes, he's one of the strongest comic book characters ever created. He is the OG. But we all want to view him as being human, someone that we can connect with. He's filled with hope. That is his character. He is someone that's always going to do the right thing, who always needs to be in the face of danger for the greater good. But let's take it more from a human approach. We want to look at Superman like a human, right? So give him a humanized story. Give him a story of, yes, he may be extraordinary, but does that automatically mean he is stripped of the freedom of being able to do and think the way he wants? And I think that's the beauty of Man of Steel, is this idea of Clark needing to learn what it actually is to be human and what it means for a god to lower himself to being a human, but at the same time understanding that his destiny is to help these people. Now, inside of the top 3 and at number 3, I put Logan. This was a film that, like I said, I was struggling. Do I put that at 4 or 3? Is Man of Steel 4 or 3? I just decided to put Logan at number 3, and mainly because, yes, the film is fantastic. The film is very, very good, but it's the man behind it. It's Hugh Jackman. There have been some great films. There have also been some stinkers. X-Men 1 and 2, great. X-Men 3, nope. X-Men First Class, he makes an appearance. X-Men Days of Future Past, at first, didn't love the movie. But the more I watch it, the more I like it, the more I appreciate it. His origin films, the first one, terrible. The second one, not good at all. Logan comes around and somehow it finds a way to make you look so differently at X-Men movies. It almost just makes you feel like if X-Men movies were all developed like this, we might be looking at X-Men movies as some of the best comic book films of all time. Now, they're not, but Logan is the one that is. Finally, we see a Wolverine film. in the way it should have been. R-rated, bloody, gory, graphic. The old man Logan, what a fantastic version to use. Someone who's run down, who knows he's going to die eventually. He can barely heal. Even his claws, he's got to pull out on his own. This is a character, a fan favorite, and even for me, he's in my top 3 of Marvel characters ever created. But it's also very bittersweet because we all know he dies at the end. You're not just saying goodbye to Wolverine, who has finally deserved justice in a film, who finally got one of the best comic book films ever made. You're saying goodbye to Hugh Jackman, who really, for years, just poured every ounce of love he has into that character, into making him what he was. At number 2, the Batman. Yes, the Batman is already at my number 2 spot of best comic book films ever made. There's a lot of reasons why this movie is so good in my opinion, but it falls upon cinematography. It's one of the most beautifully shot superhero movies ever. I've already talked about this movie so much. I have a review on the channel. I have so many videos on my channel talking about the Batman. I'm not going to spend much more time talking about it because I feel like I'm just going to rehash myself. So let's move on to number 1. And number 1 is very obvious for a lot of people who know my channel, who watch my stuff, who know how much I love Batman. I probably don't need to say what my number 1 movie is, but at number 1, it is The Dark Knight. Once again, I don't want to reiterate myself with this movie, but I will just simply say this movie is my favorite film ever created, mainly because you don't even need to look at it like a superhero film. This can match tons of different genres out there. I think this is the pinnacle of superhero movies, and I think when you make a film about a comic book character, for years people have looked at The Dark Knight and said, okay, how do I make a movie this good but for the character I am developing? And I still think that this movie will continue to do that even hundreds of years into the future. It's not about being The Dark Knight. It's not about being the exact same and following that formula. It's about understanding what The Dark Knight did to be so different than other usual comic book films, and it's about finding that difference within yourself to make a movie of your own that could fall in the same realm of being that good. The movie is not just important to me because of comic book movies. It's not just important to me because I love Batman. It is simply important to me because it has molded my future and my career choices. It's important to me because it helped me find my way into the industry I want to be in. Like I said before, if it wasn't for that movie, I wouldn't be in content creation. I wouldn't have gone to film school. I wouldn't be invested in the world of storytelling and wanting to be an actor, director, screenwriter, whatever it may be. That movie did that for me. It is the number 1 reason why I am here today. So there you have it, everyone. My quick rundown going from 10 to 1. Zack Snyder's Justice League, Avengers Infinity War, The Dark Knight Rises, Batman vs. Superman, Batman Begins, Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire, Man of Steel, Logan, The Batman, and The Dark Knight. You know, as time goes on, I might look back at this list and say, you know what, but I think I'd put this movie here, this movie there. Generally, this list will always look the same unless there are future comic book films that come out that are unbelievably good. And like I said, there are some honorable mentions. Some of those honorable mentions are movies like Iron Man 1, Captain America Winter Soldier, Spider-Man 1 with Tobey Maguire. I would even discuss the possibility of Watchmen, although I do believe the comic book is a little bit better than the movie. Believe it or not, another honorable mention for me would be Superman 2 with Christopher Reeve. I think without that movie, there is not much hope for other superhero films moving forward from that one. Honestly, that might even be number 11 on my top 20 list. But that's my list for you guys. And leave in the comments below your list. Let me know how close my list is to yours or how different we are. Once again, this is all opinionated. So your list probably gonna look a lot different than mine. We might have some things in the same positions, maybe the Dark Knight at 1 or Logan at 3, whatever it may be, but let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But that is it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching, and just like usual, I will talk to you all very soon.